Unleashing the dark and twisted secrets of Frankenstein, you won't believe the hidden themes and messages Mary Shelley left behind. Victor Frankenstein's unstoppable obsession with creating life stemmed from the raw fear of death and heartbreaking loss. His mother's untimely passing left him shattered and desperate for a way to control the natural order. The intense drive to succeed consumed him, pushing aside all else as he chased after the impossible. But the terrifying consequences of his actions soon caught up with him, unleashing a trail of destruction and misery that would haunt him forever. Mary Shelley's masterful tale of mortality and hubris is a stark warning against the dangers of unbridled ambition and the overwhelming desire to manipulate life and death. It delves deep into the ethical implications of scientific progress, reminding us all of the vital importance of respecting natural limits and boundaries. Victor Frankenstein was consumed by an unshakable terror of death and loss that compelled him to create and control life. Driven by a desperate need to escape the inevitability of death, he turned to science and pursued knowledge with reckless abandon. But his ambition blinded him to the moral cost of his actions, leading him down a treacherous path of darkness from which he could not return. Shelley's tale of Frankenstein and his creature is a warning against the dangers of unchecked ambition and the pursuit of knowledge at all costs. It reminds us that there are some things we are not meant to know or control, and that our actions have far-reaching consequences that ripple through time. Through her vivid portrayal of the creature's isolation and longing for connection, Shelley speaks directly to our universal human need for acceptance, empathy, and understanding. She reminds us that our pursuit of power and control must never come at the expense of our essential humanity. In a world where scientific progress is accelerating at an unprecedented pace, Shelley's masterpiece serves as a poignant reminder of the ethical implications of our choices. It urges us to consider the question of what we should do versus what we can do, and to remember that our actions have consequences that we cannot foresee. In the end, Shelley's tale stands as a timeless reflection of our shared human experience, a warning against the dangers of hubris, and a reminder that we are all connected in ways that we cannot fully understand. From the very beginning of his existence, the creature is plagued by a deep fear of rejection and isolation. This fear is what drives his desperate desire for acceptance and companionship, leading him to seek out Victor, his creator, as a potential friend. However, the creature is met with nothing but horror and disgust from Victor, and ultimately all of society. This rejection fuels the creature's eventual turn to violence and revenge, as he seeks to punish those who have rejected him and make them feel the same pain of isolation that he has endured. Ultimately, the message of the creature's fear of rejection and isolation is a warning against the dangers of judging others based solely on their appearance or differences, and the importance of empathy and understanding in creating an inclusive and accepting society. Victor Frankenstein's fear of death and loss was all-consuming, a relentless ache that ate at him from the inside out. His mother's death was a blow that hit hard, and his inability to come to terms with it only fueled his desire to control the natural order. He poured himself into his studies, his experiments, his pursuit of life-giving knowledge, and all else faded into the background. But even as he laboured, something niggled at the back of his mind, a sense of wrongness that he couldn't shake, the idea that perhaps he was treading on ground that should remain untouched, playing God in ways that could only lead to disaster. It was too late, however, before he fully realised the gravity of his actions. The creature he brought to life was a force of nature, a being without love or mercy, twisted and ugly in its existence. And yet, in spite of its monstrous appearance, it was Victor who was truly the monster, unleashing something beyond his control on the world at large. The fear and obsession that had driven him had blinded him to the reality of the situation he had engineered, and the consequences of his folly were dire and permanent. In the creature's own story, we see another facet of fear and desperation, the fear of rejection and isolation. It is a common human experience to crave acceptance and love, to want to be part of a community, to find a place where we belong. And yet for the creature, there was no such place. He was rejected and shunned from the very moment he came to life, a stranger in a world that would never accept him. His loneliness was profound and heartrending, his desire for someone to understand and care for him palpable in its intensity. We see the impact of his isolation play out in his actions and decisions, in the way he lashes out in anger and despair, in his desperate search for any kind of companionship. It is a stark reminder of how important it is to be kind and empathetic to others, to understand that we are all dealing with our own struggles and demons, and that human connection is a vital part of what it means to be alive. The dangers of ambition and knowledge are another theme that permeates Shelley's masterpiece. Victor's pursuit of knowledge was anything but innocent, born out of a desire to cheat death and reshape the world according to his own whims. In his zeal, he ignored all natural limits and boundaries, blinded by the promise of what could be. And yet, as the old adage goes, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. His hubris led to consequences that were both unintended and horrific, reminding us all of the dangers of playing with forces beyond our comprehension. It is a warning against the arrogance of human thought, the idea that we can somehow bend reality to our will, and the importance of respecting the natural world around us. Mary Shelley's novel is an icon of literature, a masterful work that explores some of the deepest fears and desires of the human experience. It was written in an age when the world was in flux, where new scientific developments were radically altering the way people thought about the world around them. And yet, it remains relevant today, as we continue to push the boundaries of what is possible, to explore the frontiers of science and technology. We are living in a time of unprecedented progress, and it is more important than ever that we consider the ethical implications of what we are doing, to contemplate the fragile balance of nature and the potential consequences of our actions. Frankenstein is a call to action, a plea to the better angels of our nature, to remember that we are all part of a larger whole, and that our actions have far-reaching consequences. In Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, we witness the catastrophic consequences of unrestrained ambition and unbridled thirst for knowledge. Victor Frankenstein, driven by his insatiable desire to create life, ignores all boundaries and unleashes a torrent of destruction that he cannot control. Shelley's brilliant cautionary tale urges us to reflect on the perils of unchecked ambition and the catastrophic aftermath of playing God. In today's world, where scientific progress is racing ahead at an unprecedented pace, it is crucial to heed Shelley's warning and examine the ethical implications of our actions. She powerfully reminds us that we must never push past natural boundaries, as the repercussions of doing so can be catastrophic. Her timeless message about the dangers of ambition remains as relevant today as it was in her time. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is a haunting masterpiece, unearthing deep themes and messages about the perilous pursuit of ambition, the terror of death, and the moral implications of scientific progress. The epic tale follows Victor Frankenstein's obsession with creating life, stemming from his traumatic childhood experiences with loss and mortality. His single-minded ambition permeates the pages, driving him to manipulate the natural order in a reckless attempt to cheat death. Shelley's evocative language paints a picture of intense desperation and all-consuming obsession as Frankenstein risks everything to satisfy his hubristic drive. But playing God has its consequences, as the novel illustrates in terrifying detail. The creation of Frankenstein's creature ignites a cascade of destruction and chaos, and his refusal to take responsibility for his actions only exacerbates the situation. Shelley uses Frankenstein as a cautionary tale, warning against the dangers of unchecked ambition and the devastating fallout that results. Even the creature is a victim of ambition, motivated by a desire for acceptance and companionship that society cruelly denies him. The repercussions of his isolation are palpable, influencing his every decision and causing immense pain and suffering, as Shelley vividly describes. The novel's timely warning against ambition is further explored through the character of Walton, who is similarly driven by a lust for knowledge and fame. Shelley cautions against obsession and the pursuit of knowledge at any cost, insisting we must respect our natural limits and boundaries. Frankenstein's longevity as a masterpiece owes much to Shelley's profound exploration of scientific advancement during her time. As we continue to grapple with the consequences of unchecked ambition and technological progress, the warning against playing God has never been more pressing. Frankenstein's influence on popular culture is incontrovertible, its themes and message permeating countless adaptations. The initial message is as vital now as it was Victorian England. Ambition must be moderated by reverence for natural laws or suffer the horrific fallout. In closing, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is an enduring literary masterpiece, peeling back layers of cautionary themes about ambition, death, and progress. Through the character of Victor Frankenstein, Shelley reinforces the need to uphold our natural limits and boundaries and highlights the horrific outcomes that result when we ignore them. This timeless warning of the potential consequences of playing God in the pursuit of knowledge is just as vital today as it was when Shelley first penned her story. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein explores various hidden themes and messages that are still relevant to contemporary society. One of the prominent themes is Victor Frankenstein's fear of death and loss, which motivates him to create the creature. The consequences of this fear and obsession are catastrophic, and the novel warns against the dangers of playing God by exploring the theme of mortality. Furthermore, the creature's fear of rejection and isolation highlights the impact of social exclusion on individual behavior and decision-making. The dangers of ambition and knowledge are also explored through Victor's pursuit of knowledge, which leads to disastrous outcomes. The novel reflects a larger trend towards scientific advancement in Shelley's time and calls for society to consider the ethical implications of scientific advancement and the pursuit of knowledge. The relevance of these themes in contemporary society cannot be overstated, and it is crucial that society addresses these issues in order to avoid the negative consequences of unchecked ambition and the disregard for natural limits and boundaries.